Hello everybody and a very warm welcome back to my latest video. I do hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. Last week I did a video in German where I compared the original version of Lee Moses' Time and Place versus two other reissues. And many of my English speaking viewers got in touch with me and said, could you please do an English version of that video? Well, I'm not a big fan of doing a straight copy of a video and just telling you guys all the same things I did in German, just in a different language. Therefore, I dedicated a whole new video about some really Grail records versus their reissues. So we will also, of course, discuss Lee Moses, but we will also go into some other reissues. What you have to consider if we are talking about very rare records. And I celebrate it each time a reissue is coming out because it makes it available for everybody, and it's also on a budget in most cases to buy the reissue, and so you can enjoy it on record. So I really celebrate that every time it happens. And what you have to consider is if you have a very rare record, so that means maybe it hasn't been pressed so many times, it was on a private press, it was on a tech scam label, so not many were sold. And that means many people start to want to have it, but just so many copies are available. And that means the price is skyrocketing high. So in most cases, the master tapes of these albums might have been lost over time. Somebody threw it in the trash bin because nobody really thought that like 50 years after, people go crazy about this record and are selling a tremendous amount of money, or other record company comes up and says, we would love to do a reissue of that album. Do you still have the master tape? So in some cases, it's just the only possibility to do a reissue, to do a needle drop. So because the tapes are gone. What is a needle drop? A needle drop means that if you have in the best possible way a near mint, an excellent, or even a mint copy of the record, and you just put it on a special turntable in a recording studio and tape the music which is on the record, and trying with filters or whatever kind of technological possibilities to have to enhance the sound, and then you do the reissue with it. If you don't have the master tape, that's the only possibility to do that. And let's just start about cover art. If the master tapes are gone, you can be absolutely sure in many cases that the cover art department, which work for these smaller labels, they didn't save anything. So a recreation of the cover is being done with scanning the original copy of the cover and using this as a template for the printer to create the new covers. And it's totally legit to do, and I've seen great results of this, and therefore if it's the only possible way to do that, let's do it. So I compared the original pressing of Time and Place, which it got extremely expensive. So when I bought this record, it was still for me in a way where I say, okay, it's affordable and it's a great record, and having it as an original is a dream come true. It now is like $1,000, $1,200 if you even find it. So having reissues, as many as possible out there, is a great thing. I did a comparison between an unofficial release of 2015 and a Light in the Attic reissue. And also, if you pay a certain price point for a reissue, and with the Light in the Attic version it was around 50 euros, so 50 bucks, I kind of also have some expectations on the cover art. And in 80%, they did a good job. But the thing that really bothered me, and I know I'm a little picky about this, but you pay a certain price point, is they recreated the font, and also on the back, I'm showing you this, they also recreated the font on the back. They recreated this font, so I think, and also made a scan of this picture. They also did a high-res scan of this picture, but they tuned up the color so much that Lee Moses' face on this side was white, totally white. So that wasn't for me a perfect way of doing it. Actually, I was a little disappointed. Sound-wise, and this is my personal humble opinion, because tomorrow if somebody comes over and I'm telling you, here you have 3 versions of Time and Place, choose the best sounding one, he could have a totally different opinion than I have. So I can only say it from my personal opinion, is that I was also sound-wise, I preferred the unofficial release from 2015, which is around $20 euros if you find it, instead of the version from Light in the Attic. I was even surprised for myself that I preferred the original versions overall, because it has the more detail and it had a more crisper sound to it. But this unofficial release came very close to the original one. And where the Light in the Attic, where I missed the details and everything, for me it was like somebody didn't have the original master tape. I didn't find any information about this. They might have used a needle drop. Like I said, it's just speculative part on my side, and tried to enhance the sound, but cut off some other elements from the music while using certain filters or anything. So for me, sound-wise, if I compared it to the other 2 versions, it wasn't for me the best sounding version. But if you buy it as a standalone record, you don't do a comparison between certain versions, it sounded good. But if I had to choose, and it would have been a reissue I needed to choose, I would have chosen the unofficial release. Also cover-wise, the scan from this one was way better. You see his face is a little brighter up here, but in the Light at the Attic it was half of his face. So if you put that in consideration, that was pretty much it, what I told you guys in the Time and Place video. So what I also did was I did a comparison between 2 or 3 other records actually. And let's start with William Stuckey. A love of mine. It's also got extremely rare, extremely expensive to find. And this is just a stellar recording. I loved it from the beginning, and finding an original copy, it took me years. And Anthems of the North did a reissue of this one. You can see the differences in the cover art, and I really dig that as well. You don't always need to have an exact copy of the original one. So if you want to make it clear, hey, that's the reissue, that's the original, that's absolutely a way to go. And they're also made scans of the original picture. You can see that here up in the front. They made it a little bigger. So there's a history to this reissue. They got the tapes from William Stuckey himself. He had it in his basement, and the tapes were in a very bad condition. And Dan Johnson had the job to try to restore the tapes. And it got to a point where he recorded like a couple of seconds of the original tapes, needed to clean the recording heads and everything once again, and then again needed to record a couple of seconds. So it took days, and it was a one-shot. The condition of the tapes were so bad that we try it, and if it doesn't work, it's lost. So the only chance you have if you want to have this album in an all analog chain is to get an original. But they did a fantastic job with this. The next thing is that on the original version, the mixing of the album wasn't done as William Stuckey wanted it to do. So you'll find a great sounding reissue of William Stuckey on this one, and also in the mix he wanted, because in the tape boxes there were the original notes how he wanted how his record should sound, and they did this on this record. And they also included an unreleased session track, and this is just around the corner. It's an instrumental, and it's great. So I can highly suggest check out this record. It's a great reissue, and you get the mix as the singer wanted it to sound, and therefore that's a great one. Comparing these is not so easy because of the different mix, but they both sound great. They sound both a little different, but sound-wise I couldn't decide which one I would prefer. So I really like both mixes. And like I said, finding an original, it's very difficult. And with this reissue from Athens of the North, you have, in my humble opinion, once again, a great sounding reissue in the mix. The singer wanted to have it, plus a bonus track. So thumbs up for Athens of the North. Leon Debouse. He only recorded one album in 1977. He was a singer from Miami. And finding a fine instrument as an original copy in good condition, you are in like 400 to 500 euro at least, and still depending on the condition. Therefore, I was very happy that one of my viewers, Lothar, thank you for that, sent me this reissue as a VCLT. And this reissue was done by Above Board. And hold on, I put it out of the sleeve. Once again, they did a scan of the original one, and they did a very good job on this. The only tiny complaint I have is that his nose is very bright. I don't know the reason for that, but you know, if you don't have an original to compare it to, it's absolutely fine. So they did a very good job on the cover art. I'm not buying so many new records. So if you are used to records from the 60s and 70s and the covers, you are kind of used to thicker cardboard, way thicker cardboard. But what I've learned from last year's record store day, where I bought a couple of records, for example, the Average White Band live in 1974, which I absolutely dig. It seems to be the standard today to have this thin cardboard. So therefore I won't complain. Sound-wise, this is also sounding great. It's very close to the original, very, very close. And I really enjoyed that reissue as well. It was not bad sounding. It was very well done. Also, you get, I think it's over 120 gram vinyl. So very heavy vinyl. Once again, also label, everything was done very well. I also, finding informations from labels, what was the source of this reissue is very difficult. In 99%, I'm not getting an answer, which I think is very sad, because it's nothing to be ashamed of to have a needle drop, to have a digital step, to have a copy of a copy of a copy of a master tape. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm happy if a reissue comes out. And if you have to consider it's not sounding as close as to the original, I'm totally okay with this. I'm just happy to have a reissue. So therefore, I wish that more record labels would answer me and tell me what the source is. But whatever the source was, it sounds great. It comes very close to the original. And yeah, if you have the chance to find it from Above Records, go and grab it. There's one thing I have to complain about. In 2024, I'm willing to pay 50 cents more to get the record delivered in a properly polylined inner sleeve. Why? Why paper inner sleeves? So the record came in perfectly packed, everything wonderful. But when I put the record out of this, because it was moving a lot within the cover, you can see it has here on the bottom, the spine is cracked. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. So there was, it's up here. Here you can see it. So there was a lot of movement going on within this cover, and the record suffered. So maybe next time switching to a polylined inner sleeve, I would be very thankful. All right. The next one I compared was Hilton Felton, A Man for All Reasons. So this is a kind of, how do I describe this? It's kind of jazzy, lounge type of music, early 80s. Every time I listen to this record, I imagine myself sitting on a lounge in a Vegas hotel while a band is playing, and I have a nice gin tonic in my hand and just enjoy the atmosphere. So this is the kind of record. And this is the original, which also is, once again, not very common to find. And it was done on his own label, Hilton Concept Inc. And he worked with some greats in the music business. Unfortunately, he himself never made it big. So here is the back of the cover. I hope you can see that. And what I here have now is a reissue which came out on Record Store Day in 2021. It was done by Expansion Records from the UK. And well, it's still in shrink. Once again, cover from the original one. Job was done also very well. Of course, the picture quality, because back in the day they used a real picture to make the cover art from. Here it's a scan, so you have to make some compromises, but once again, it's very well been done. It was a limited edition. This is 375. If you want to, you still find that version between in near mint condition around €30. Of course, you have to consider postage costs, but it's still out there and it's still affordable. This is the back, also a scan. Yeah, I'm complaining now about things which shouldn't really matter. I'm just telling you this, what my impression is, because once again, it should be about the music. So on the back, they also did a scan. Yeah, you can only do and work with what you have, so that's totally okay. So overall, the job has been done pretty well. I got in touch with Expansion Records and they answered me, and I was over the moon. Once again, paper inner sleeve. I was over the moon when they answered me, and I know a little background information on this one. Wes Hilton, the son of Felton Hilton, gave the master tapes to Expansion Records, so they worked with the master tapes. And they did a great job. I don't know if it's all analog chain. I doubt it. I do think that there is a digital step within it. But working with master tapes makes a huge difference if you work with reissues, because you have absolutely more possibilities to enhance sound quality, to might change the mix a little bit, that you have certain instruments which were rarely audible during the original one, to put them a little more upfront. And that clearly works with this reissue as well. I was absolutely surprised about how good this reissue sounds. I'm totally in love with it. It sounds a little different than the original one, because I think they, like I said just a couple of seconds ago, that they might also change the mix a little bit, but it's an absolutely enjoyable record. And once again, I totally celebrate that if you put out super rare records, like for example Record Store Day, and especially these kind of albums which are totally down my alley, I do celebrate it a lot. So if you have the chance, and it's not expensive, like I said, it's around €30, also of course super thin cardboard, but they really took care in trying to recreate the cover as best as possible. On the front they did a very good job. I'm not so happy with the back, but you're listening to the record and you look most of the time in front of the record, and you just don't put it on your turntable like this and play the music. So you still can read everything great, so this is absolutely fantastic. I very much enjoyed this reissue. And like I said, it's difficult for me to compare it because there are things been done with the mix, but it's a very great sound. All right, did I miss a record? I don't think so. So what I suggest, if you have if you buy a reissue of a super rare soul, funk, and disco album, that's my alley, so that's where I can tell you how I feel it, because I experienced it. There's absolutely no wrongdoing in buying a reissue. You can absolutely enjoy the music. Sometimes if you compare it with different pressings, which is also totally normal, you might hear differences. But from these reissues I just showed you, I was very happy about it. William Stuckey was my personal highlight, because Anthems of the North put in a lot of work and make sure that they at least have a digital copy of the tape, which was in very good shape. So very well done. And the mixing is great. It sounds great. Hilton Felton, Leon Debouse, and also the unofficial release of Time and Place from Limoges, they also all sound great. In comparison with the original, it sometimes lacks for me like the more detailed things, the better soundstage and everything, but overall these reissues sound great and you can enjoy them and have a lot of fun with them. So I do hope you like that video. We're now into 20 minutes already. So I take a sip from my drink. I do hope you enjoyed that video, and yeah, maybe one of these reissues is one for you. You'll easily find them over Google or anything else, or on secondary market platforms. Like I said, they're all still there, they're all affordable, and they're all sound great. Stay safe, stay healthy, and if you like that video, you might want to check out the playlist which is appearing up here, and I'll catch you